Hello guys, our today's interview will be a bit more technical where we'll talk about sales, real estate and also about maintaining laser focus and controlling your thoughts. And to talk on this matter, we have a special guest here, Mr. Dean Fox, who is a mindset coach, speaker, consultant and an entrepreneur from northeast side of England, UK. Mr. Fox has been helping commercial directors, executives and entrepreneurs to eliminate their doubts and fears, unlock their potential and in increasing their productivity. So welcome Dean, welcome to Behind the Brains.
Thank you, Noel. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so before getting started, Mr. Fox, I would like you to give a slight layout of this interview. So first, we'll know who you are and what you do, and then we would jump on to your sales and real estate career. And after that, we'll discuss some things about your course where you talk about resilience and how to control one's thoughts. So let's get started. So firstly, tell our audience who Dean Fox is and what do you do?
So essentially, as you said, I'm a mind performance coach. So I help entrepreneurs, business owners, and company executives and directors to unlock the real potential that exists within them by helping them eliminate the limiting beliefs and doubts around self-belief and self-confidence, which enables them to take the actions, stop procrastinating, and get the results that they really have the potential to get with zero resistance.
Okay, so let's start with your sales career and how did you become the national sales manager for the company that you were working for?
Okay, so I got into sales as a junior sales executive, sales rep, and one of the things that I'm really passionate about, things I enjoy most, is connecting with people, building relationships, having conversations, and that really played out in my sales career. It was extremely beneficial because I put that above everything else. So focusing on building the relationship with my potential clients meant that even if I was unable to help them, we still forged a relationship, and so in the future, they're more likely to come back and do business with me. And that led to me kind of growing a really good customer base. We brought a lot of revenue to the company, and slowly but surely, I worked my way up. I started just looking after a group of salespeople in one region, so I became the regional sales manager. And my real opportunity at a national level came when the company looked to move in a new direction. They wanted to look at a new product and service, and they were looking for somebody who would be interested in heading that up. And that's kind of what I really enjoyed. Ground floor opportunity, getting in, starting something from scratch and really kind of seeing where we could take it. And that kind of led me into that role, and my previous experience and the relationships I'd already built kind of fed into that and allowed me to move forward with that opportunity.
Oh, so what were the most important aspects you would look while selling any product or service?
I think there has to be an element of belief. So I need to believe in what we're doing. So either the product or the service or the mission that the company has, why we're doing what we're doing. It's a great book and a series of talks by a guy called Simon Sinek around start with why. People don't buy what we do, they buy why we do it. And so I'm a big believer in that. I need to really, really believe in the product, the service and the mission that the company has. And the second thing I already touched on really for me is that make relationships the first aspect. So some of my clients, my customers that I've brought to companies in the past are still friends of mine 20 or 30 years after we've done business together, even though I'm not in that same industry. And I pride myself on that because that for me was the biggest factor, one of the biggest factors to my success in sales was about really connecting with people and building relationships. I often had my clients coming to me to ask if I could help them even in areas that were not related to our business, simply because I become the go-to person, a friend that they can ring and say, I've got a problem with this, I know it's not your area of expertise, do you know anybody who can help us out? And I would introduce them to somebody from my network. And that again, growing that network also then improved the number of potential opportunities that got brought to me
Okay, so what was the best sales experience you have ever had?
Um, Best sales experience. I think one of the best aspects of sales, if you like, is finding a way. So, really trying to find a way to connect with somebody when perhaps it's not been that easy. So being able to stand out, do something different. So a couple of things. We had a potential company that we wanted to deal with, and the buyer for that company was a lady, a female, and it was really difficult to get through to speak to her. She had her office staff wouldn't allow you to divert her calls without you being able to get through. And so we bought some flowers and some chocolates, and we had them delivered to the office for her attention with our business card in it. It's just something a little bit different that nobody else had done, and allowed us to at least get a conversation with her. It was a little bit more receptive.
Okay, so what three tips you would like to give to someone who wants to become a salesperson in the future?
So I think we've probably already touched on the key ones. The first one is, don't consider it to be selling, consider it to be service. I don't sell any of the products or services that we offer. I intend to serve people, and if we can serve them and solve a problem, then there's a good opportunity, a good chance we'll do business together. So don't think about it as being sales, think about it as being service and solving problems. The more problems you can solve, the better you'll be at sales. And that's the first thing. The second thing is, be yourself. Don't try and be somebody else. Be authentic and be a little bit different. Don't be afraid to try something just because no one else is actually doing that. And the third and final thing is around relationships and networks. They say that your network is your net worth. And if you can build a good, strong, solid network with people, then you'll have people bringing you business because you've helped them in the past. So if you're looking to get into sales, do it for the right reasons. And it's a fantastic environment to be a part of. Some real great opportunities. And if you're good at it and you develop the skills, then you'll never ever be out of work. Essentially, you'll be able to do anything for any company. Because good salespeople are not that easy to come by.
Okay, so you have also said in most of your interviews that Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki was the book that influenced you to start your own property business. Tell us something about that.
So, Rich Dad Poor Dad, it's a fantastic book anyway, but it was the first book that I read that kind of opened my eyes to this idea about you'll never have real kind of wealth or success working for somebody else. So there's an employee mindset and there's an entrepreneurial mindset. Kiyosaki talks about the four quadrants and about positioning yourself. But he also talked, and it was the first time I'd really heard anybody talk about this idea of a passive income stream. That he used investments and the return from those investments in order to buy some of the things that he had. And this idea of being able to do something, purchase in this case a property, and then have it return you an income stream on a regular basis for, in essence, no further cost or time. So to generate this passive income stream month after month, year after year, that really sparked my interest because I'd never really come across that before. Everything I'd done before was about, if I do something, I'll be able to generate an income from it. I never really looked at this an asset and a liability, and that was one of the things that really jumped out in Rich Dad Poor Dad, this idea about what do we define as assets and what do we define as liabilities, and that's what led me into looking at property from a passive income point of view in the first place.
Okay, so what was the biggest deal you have ever cracked in property business?
It's difficult to say, but I think the last deal that we did prior to the changes in the industry was a seven-figure deal for a multi-property development site sold off the individual plots for development after that was probably our most lucrative in terms of financial size. We did a couple of other what I would call in those days a relatively simple opportunity just to flip the property to buy something on one day and have it sold the next day. We did a number of those, but that was probably the biggest one in terms of a single development deal.
Oh, so you have also mentioned that during the 2008 financial crisis, your property business was on the verge of bankruptcy and you were broke at that time. So, what was the thing that influenced you to get on track again after that?
So, 2008 to 2010 was a really tough time. 2008, we obviously had the global financial crisis that virtually destroyed our business overnight. All of the systems and processes and methods that we used up to that point essentially stopped on that day in 2008. And we had a period after that, 2 years, where things were really tough. On the back of the financial crisis and a few other aspects, we lost a substantial amount of money into investments. And then we had we were almost, my wife and I and my youngest son were almost killed in a car accident in March 2010. And that kind of 2.5 year period, if you like, was probably the most difficult we'd ever experienced. It felt like every time we saw a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, that there was another door closed. So when we lost the property business, we said, well, we should do investments. So they'll see us through this period of time. And then obviously when we lost those, we were like, well, okay, worst case scenario, as I said earlier, I've got a background in sales. I can probably go restart a career, get a job with somebody, at least to see us through the difficult period. And then we had the car accident, and that kind of closed that door. I wasn't able to work for about 12 months. So it almost felt like this downward spiral thing was just getting worse on an ongoing basis. But the thing that really kind of, I wouldn't say it just got me back on track, but it started that spark again was I had a really difficult time in the lead up to Christmas in 2010 to December of that year. I reached a point where I wasn't in a very good place personally. I was probably at my lowest, and I contemplated the end of my life that day. I got out for a walk and decided that I wasn't going home. But there was a few things that happened, just enough for me to see a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. And when I did go back home, I took a book from the bookshelf, which was I'd read the book before, but the copy I took from that bookshelf was one that my son had bought me on the return from a holiday together before the financial crisis. It was a book called Think and Grow Rich, and that copy that he bought me was the book I took off the shelf and read that day. And that literally, it didn't change things overnight, but it literally transformed me in terms of starting again. I saw things in that book that I'd never seen when I read it previous times. And it really started me to ask some questions about myself and led me into this journey of personal growth and development. So it was the concept, it was the book and the concepts within that kind of restarted and rekindled my excitement about what the possibilities could be and the opportunities for the future. That kind of got me restarted again.
Okay, so do you think that if anyone reads Think and Grow Rich, he can change his life too if he is in a miserable position right now?
Think and Grow Rich is one of, if not the best book I've ever read around success. The issue for most people, and I've read this and I've studied it, and I've run mastermind groups where we actually read the book and share some of the key concepts. And I now have an online program where I kind of provide support and guidance for people all over the world to be able to go through the key principles of that. But the issue for most people is they read it, they see the success that he talks about people having, but they don't implement the principles that are in there. They just read it as another book. It's what I call shelf development. It just kind of sits on the shelf and no one does anything with it. So, that book can absolutely transform people's lives, but they have to take action on the principles that exist in there. It's not good just reading it, you've got to be doing something with it. But yeah, it absolutely can.
So, what part of the book influenced you the most?
I think the biggest change for me is something that I continue to use on a daily basis, which is that he talks about setting a definite major purpose, and he talks about having some key steps about how to write it, and then it should be something you recite every day, just to kind of keep that clear vision of what you want. And I've continued to use that since the very day I started using that book onwards. I started by writing it on a piece of paper. I now have it on like a business card size piece of card, and I carry it with me. It's always in my pocket. I have it all the time. It just continually reminds me of where I'm going. That desire of what's my purpose, why am I here, what impact I want to have, and where am I going.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, very much inspiring book at the end.
Yes.
So, what lessons did you learn from both of the careers, your sales career and from your property business career?
So I think that my two biggest lessons, my sales career, it taught me a lot about relationships and connections and networks. I've talked a lot about that so far. That was my number one takeaway from being involved in sales, was that when you build a relationship with somebody, for the sake of building a relationship as opposed to trying to sell them something, then your chance of being able to do business with them either now or in the future is significantly enhanced. So that was my big lesson from my sales career. My lesson from the property career, if you like, was that despite trying, you cannot predict the future, and things can happen which are outside your control, and it's not about what happens to you; it's how you react to what happens to you. And so my big lesson from that was that during that period, we could have looked at other things. There might have been other opportunities, but we were laser focused on just one outcome. That left us with our eggs all in one basket. And when 2008 hit, we had nowhere to go. We had no room to maneuver, no leverage. And so our lesson from there is that was to try and build multiple streams of income. That's what I learned from my property career, was that had we done that at the time, then who knows what would have happened from there.
So, what one advice would you like to give to someone who wants to grow their property business after this quarantine?
So I suppose there's two bits of advice. One is that find a strategy that aligns with you, that works for you. There are numerous property strategies out there. Find the one that works for you, and learn all of the aspects of that strategy so that you understand it, so you know how to make, whether a deal stacks up at the beginning, how to get in and out, how to use other people's money and finance strategies. And then the second big piece of advice would be make sure that you develop good, strong relationships with a good team. So whether that's a legal team, a finance broker or a mortgage advisor, or a network of them, a construction team with the trade skills. Try and get that in place as you start to go, so that you are able, when things present themselves, to be able to pull your team together and say, well, I'm going to do this particular project now.
So, after figuring out your purpose of life, you also started another business of coaching, which was named Infinite Wealth Group. Tell us something about that.
So that was born out of two things. One was I made a decision to no longer work for somebody else. After that, I wanted to be my own boss. So we set up the company to support two aspects: our consultancy business, where we consult on vocational education strategies for engineering and manufacturing industries, and also through our coaching and our products and services that we provide online. And so that's kind of, if you like, the parent company that supports Dean Fox Coaching and our consultancy business. And we've grown that. We've got big plans to continue to grow. It kind of sits in the background. Most of our work is done mastermind is speaking and coaching, and our online products come under the banner of Dean Fox Coaching. But our Infinite Wealth Group is the parent company that sits behind there that we set up to kind of help support and develop the products and services that we provide.
Okay, so what future plans would you have with this company?
So our future is really about significantly growing the coaching speaking side of our business. Our online services are still there. We have some online coaching programs, but our kind of one-to-one, our mastermind groups, we're looking to grow them, and we're looking particularly to expand internationally. I've got a number of clients now in Europe and in the US, and we're looking to expand that because our mission ultimately is to have an impact in the lives of as many people as we can. So in order to do that, we've got to find ways to reach more people and be able to offer services which can assist people right across the world.
So do you think that coronavirus has affected you much?
Only on the basis that I think that most of the work that we did around consulting and some of our speaking was done internationally. Due to the travel restrictions, we're not able to move that forward. But again, I'm a big believer in that every situation is either an obstacle or an opportunity, and we get to decide that. So we could have said at the beginning of the lockdown period, if you like, that okay, that side of our business isn't gonna grow. We're not gonna be able to do anything with it, and so we're probably gonna have to kind of slow down on that. Or we could see it as an opportunity, and we saw it as a real opportunity. We saw it as a chance to, okay, we're not going to be able to do our actual consultancy on the ground, but coaching, speaking, we can look to scale that up now because we can do that through technology and we can reach more people. And now there are more people at home, or more people with more time in current circumstances, and it gives an opportunity to reach them. So we've probably things like these podcasts and online summits. I've probably spoken on more podcasts and more online summits over the last 9 weeks than I probably did in the previous 9 months. And so I've seen this as a real opportunity. So it's had some impacts on our business, but I'm still focused on it being a real opportunity for us.
Okay, so now let's discuss about how resilience plays a major role in shaping the minds of today's leaders and today's world-class entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's one of my big things is that people often get this idea of obstacles. People see an obstacle and they don't look for a way to get around it or over it. They just assume they can't. And there's a couple of things. One is that people ask the question. If I'm coaching someone, they often ask a question like, "Can I do this? Can we find a way?" And I keep telling them to stop asking that question because that question starts from a position of the assumption is that you can't. So it starts from a negative perspective in the first place. So can I assumes that I'm not able to, or I don't think I can. Is it possible? Is it even possible? I ask them to ask a question that starts with an extra word, and we put the word "how" in front of it. So the question is always "how can I," not "can I." And by asking "how can I," we assume that we can. First of all, so we come at it from a positive perspective. We know it's possible. We just don't know how yet. And that puts a completely different view on overcoming obstacles. Because at the end of the day, if you are not resilient enough to get through the obstacles that life will throw at you, whether it's coronavirus, whether it's financial crisis in 2008, whether it's other issues, then you're not going to achieve your potential, what you're capable of. So resilience for me is one of the key factors that allows people to get where they want to be. The second thing is that when people view obstacles, I have this analogy where I say that if you are a 110-meter hurdler and you're at the start line of the race and you look up, all you're going to see is a whole series of hurdles in front of you. The question you need to ask yourself are those hurdles, those obstacles, are they in the way or are they on the way to where you want to be? for the 110-metre hurdler, he thinks they're on the way because he's seeing the finish line, nothing else. So the hurdles are just on his way there. And I'm a big believer when we look at obstacles that that's what we should be doing. Anything that's there in front of us, an obstacle, is just on the way to where we want it to be. It's not in the way. There's always a way through, round, or over, or under any obstacle we see that's there, if we're resourceful enough to look for it. So Tony Robbins has a saying. He says that we don't lack resources. We just lack the resourcefulness to be able to find the resources.
Absolutely.
That's the key. We've got to develop the resilience. There has to be a way through everything. There's always a way around, or a way through, or a way under. But if we're not looking for that, we're not starting from the point of this is just on the way to my end point, my goal, my destination, there must be a solution. We're looking for a solution. The likelihood is we'll find one.
So, in your book, How to Master Resilience in 21 Days, you mentioned a point about responding versus reacting. Can you explain that to our audience?
Yeah, so it's a fine line, if you like, but what happens is when something happens to us, when there's an event, a situation, a problem that we perceive to be affecting us, usually we react to that. And reaction is instant. It doesn't come with any thought. It's an emotional response, so it happens really quickly. So that's how people end up angry in situations, or frustrated, or stressed, because they react. And that happens subconsciously, it happens really quickly. Response, when you respond to a situation, that's a more measured approach. That's giving you time to think about something, analyse it, decide what's the best course of action based on the information that I have right now, and then responding to it. And so it just gives people enough of a gap to be able to make a measured decision. Reactions tend to be instant, and they tend always to lead to further problems. If something happens and you become extremely angry, instantly your instant reaction is anger. The chance of you finding a solution in the short term is virtually zero. Whereas if you take a measured response to it, you analyse the situation, because ultimately, when any event happens, when there's any situation, the first question I ask myself is, what do I really know about this? In reality, what do I actually know? And usually, the answer is very little at this stage. So there's no point in reacting until I understand a little bit more about the situation, and then we can respond accordingly.
You have also explained that how events don't matter in many situations. Can you explain that too?
Yeah, so one of the core principles to my coaching is that if people really, really understood that it's not the event that causes them to feel a certain way, that it's the interpretation of the event, in other words, the meaning that we give an event that causes how we feel about it. If people really truly understand that, it's a game changer. It can transform people's reactions and responses to events almost overnight. And it's been a real big part of what the success that I've had in working with my own mindset approach, but also it's a core principle in terms of my coaching for other clients. So, if we took an example, we took an event, any event whatsoever cannot have an inherent meaning. And the reason we say that is that if they had an inherent meaning, the response to it from us, whether it was good, bad, or not, would be the same. So everybody would experience the same outcome from the same event. And that's not true. It doesn't work like that. If we took a very simple example, an event, say rain. When it rains, that's an event. Well, if it rained, and we took a scenario where it hadn't rained for several months, and you were a farmer and you were in danger of losing your crops, and then all of a sudden it rains, rain would be good. If we took exactly the same event and you organised some outdoor event, whatever that event was, a raining or spent months planning it, whether it be glorious right up to the point of the event. And on the day of the event was raining, then rain would be interpreted as being bad. But the event is still the same, it hasn't changed, it's just rain. So the event doesn't have any inherent meaning. What changes the meaning is the meaning that we give it, our interpretation of the event, of the circumstance, of the situation. That's what gives it meaning. So when I say events have no meaning, they all have consequences, but they don't have any inherent meaning. And when we understand that, we can be detached from the actual event. So it holds no emotional connection for us, and therefore allows us that opportunity to respond rather than react.
So you have also explained the whole process of controlling one's thoughts and emotions through the REM total resilience system. It would be very helpful to our audience if you talk about that.
Okay, so REM is a part of the total resilience program, and one of the reasons that most people don't continue to use the inherent resilience that they have, in other words, they give up to them, is because they become attached, emotionally attached to events that happen to them and the outcomes of those events. And once you can separate that and see that it's not the event that causes you to feel that way, then you're in a position to make more measured decisions, particularly when it comes to a business perspective or even life for that matter. And so REM stands for reality, emotion, and meaning. And what we talk about is that if you take a specific event, the first question should be, what is the reality? In other words, what do we really know about the event? So if we took the event we described earlier, rain, what do we really know about the event? Well, all we really know is it's raining. That's about it. There's some consequences. If we were hosting an outdoor event, we couldn't host it outdoor, we'd have to come indoor. That's a consequence. But the reality is it's raining. The next question then needs to be, okay, what emotion do I feel about this event? So if it is, in that example, if it was an outdoor event and you spent time planning it and now you couldn't hold it, you might be feeling angry or disappointed or stressed or anxious. So the question is, okay, what emotion am I attaching to this? What this particular event, what emotion does it generate? And the third and final bit of the M is, what meaning must I be giving to this event in order to generate that emotion? So, in the case of rain, what am I saying the rain today means? Other than the consequence, what am I saying it means in order for me to be feeling angry about it? And once we understand that process, we can start to break the connection, the emotional reactions that we have, emotional connections that we have to any event. And the more often we do that, so the total resilience program we developed is a 21-day process that gives people an opportunity over 21 days to experience REM and use that technique on a daily basis, building up so that very quickly they can start to detach themselves and retain the focus that they had and continue through any obstacles that come, because we can break that emotional connection to the event. And that's what that program was designed to do, was to help people develop this this understanding so that they can then continue with the inherent resilience they have to overcome any obstacles that present themselves.
Yeah, so maybe this could be a little personal, but what's that one thing you have never told to anyone in any of your seminars or any of the podcast interviews you have ever had?
It's a really difficult question, and the reason it's very difficult is I'm very open. I talk a lot about all the lots of things that. So one thing I've probably alluded to it, but I don't think I've ever specifically told anyone directly in a podcast. But anyway, my younger brother is a musician, and I've often referred to the fact that he's a musician. But what I don't think I've ever told anyone is that his first major album went platinum. I have a copy of the album.
Yeah, I can see it.
That's my brother's first album. That's a platinum selling album. I've got a copy of the platinum disc on my wall on the other side.
Okay. So, what do you think is the key for maintaining the laser focus?
I think there's a couple of things. I think knowing exactly what it is that you want, in other words, that major purpose we talked about earlier on from Think and Courage, knowing exactly what the outcome is that I want for my life. This is where I'm going, this is what my purpose is, my mission. Knowing that, and then being able to develop and use the inherent resilience we have in order to keep going through obstacles. And then the final thing, which is something else I talk about in coaching, is that the thing that most people back is who they think they are. The self-image that they develop for themselves, the belief system that they have. That's what prevents them taking necessary action to get to achieve the small steps on the journey towards their major purpose. And so for me, it's a combination of those three things, and that's really what our coaching is about. The programs that we develop, the way that we work with people is all aligned with those things. Knowing what you want, and then releasing what I call the mental handbrake, taking away the limiting beliefs that are stopping you taking the action, so you can get out and take some action, and being resilient enough to handle whatever comes at you on your way to ultimate achievement of purpose.
Okay, I have one more tricky question for you. If you had the chance to change bodies with someone, who would it be and why?
Someone asked me, not this directly, but someone asked me a specific question. I think for just because of the way things are at the minute, and I'm a keen golfer, and we're unable to play currently in the UK. We'll be next week. We'll have the overnight. Both my sons are in the industry, the golf industry, so I'm a big fan. But I'm also a big fan of some of the key golfers who are not just from their talent, their ability, but also from the way they approach their game and their life. So it would be one of two people. I think it would either be Tiger Woods, or it would be Rory McIlroy, and it's simply because I would like to spend a day experiencing what it takes, what they do from their mindset perspective to be prepared to be the best in the world in their field.
So, before signing off, Mr. Fox, what message would you like to give to our audience?
Two messages. The first one is that every situation is either an obstacle or an opportunity. You get to decide. It's your choice. And the second one is that you have way more potential than you ever think you possibly have. And if you could just believe that for a few weeks, a few months, or a few years, or even for the rest of your life, you can achieve things way beyond what you ever thought was possible. And if you just unlocked the key and reach that mental handbrake.
And that brings us to the end of this podcast. Thank you, Mr. Fox, for doing this interview.
You're more than welcome, Dibal. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, we hope that your experience and expertise will serve as a source of inspiration and motivation for the people out there watching this and dealing with the issues we have talked about. Thanks for being a part of this, and I hope you had a fun.
I did. I always enjoy speaking to people, and it's one of our missions is to reach more people around the world. So it's always great to speak to people from outside the UK, which is fantastic.
Yeah. So we'll be linking Mr. Fox's social media handles and his YouTube channel and website in the description. Make sure you follow and subscribe him. If you want more such inspirational, motivational and entrepreneurial interviews like this, then hit that subscribe button and show us some love. Don't forget to rate us on Apple Podcast, and until next time, from Behind the Brains, we'll see you later.